Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. That was a very interesting maiden speech, and it's absolutely clear how passionate you are about your about the member. Sorry, I'm going to have to get this right, aren't I, Madam Deputy Speaker? The member for Gillingham spoke very passionately about her constituency, and it's clear how hard you're going to work for them. And it's an absolute honour to speak here in this tribute to David Amos, and the tributes we heard from him, from people who knew him, were very moving, and it's something we want to aspire to be MPs who are even half as good as he was for his constituency. So practising as a veterinary surgeon, it's been deeply rewarding, and even the 3 a.m. calvings, the visiting colics in the middle of the night, and euthanizing much-loved family pets, it's been the perfect job for me as someone who grew up on a farm and who really loved science at school. But I was very relieved when I got elected that my first job as an MP was actually still within my comfort zone, as I was asked to judge the dog show at Meonstoke Village Fair. We knock on a lot of doors, all of us do, and one of the most common questions I get asked is it true that vets can treat humans as well? And I always answer people, yes, vets, we can treat humans, but once we've taken your temperature, people tend not to ask a second time. But although being a vet is a very fulfilling career, it's also very stressful, and it may surprise this house to learn that vets actually have a suicide rate of around 4 times the national average. Now, I've long been determined to do something about this, so along with one of my good friends, Sarah Brown, we set up a support group for veterinary professionals, which now has over 19,000 members. Now, unfortunately, my friend Sarah lost her battle of depression, and so I took her place as a trustee of the charity Vetlife, and we support the mental health of the UK veterinary profession. So not only does Vetlife have a 24-hour helpline for people who are struggling, but we also refer immediately anyone who is at crisis point of their mental health. Because I'm sure the whole house would be aware at the moment, if you go to a GP in a crisis situation, you may have to wait months or even over a year to get the specialist health care that you need. And I'm sure we all agree that that is not good enough. Yeah. We also know that it is not only veterinary surgeons who are at high risk of mental health issues, and there are other groups who need proactive support for their mental health. We have military veterans, women in the 12 months after giving birth, farmers, the LGBT community, and people who are struggling with debt. We know that living in poverty makes people vulnerable to the desperate cycle of payday loan companies and credit card debt, and not only does that put strain on family relationships, but it saps the joy from life, and it also contributes towards our mental health crisis. And my experience is probably shared by everyone else in this house who knock on doors, is that one of the most common subjects that is brought up are parents who are really struggling to access the mental health care for their children and teenagers, whose education and their social development was hugely disrupted by the pandemic. And this is something that parents are worried sick about. So I'm very proud that the Lib Dems have for years said that mental health should be treated with the same level of importance as physical health. And we're really heartened that the government reaffirmed this in the King's speech recently. So the Winchester constituency, there's slight boundary changes, and so we incorporated some of the Meon Valley. And so my constituents were served by 2 MPs in the last Parliament, and I'd like to pay tribute to them. There's Steve Bryan, who is also chair of the Health and Social Care Committee, and Flick Drummond, and I want to thank them for all the hard work that they did over the years for the people in my constituency. So Winchester is once one of the ancient capitals of England. It's steeped in history. King Alfred the Great, he famously defended the city from Viking attacks in the 9th century, fortifying Winchester and leading a series of successful campaigns, and he eventually secured a decisive victory in the Battle of Edington in 878, and this victory marked the beginning of the unification of England under Alfred's rule. The city is also home to the magnificent Winchester Cathedral, which has stood as the symbol of the city's religious and cultural significance for over a millennium. And we have one of the oldest newspapers in the country, the Hampshire Chronicle, which is still very popular and very well read. Now, while we are proud of our rich history, we're also a forward-looking community, keenly aware of our role in the world and our responsibility to the future. To this end, we're striving to become an official city of sanctuary for refugees, having welcomed so many from Ukraine and other areas of the world that are troubled by conflict. And organisations such as the Winchester Action on Climate Crisis, WINAC, are working tirelessly to ensure that Winchester plays our part in combating the global climate change. The River Itchen flows right through the heart of our city, and the River Meon through the Meon Valley. I must apologise, I seem to have contracted kennel cough. These rare chalk streams, they support unique ecosystems, so precious that the Itchen has been designated as a site of special scientific interest, and we hope the Meon will soon receive that same accreditation. Allowing sewage and other pollutants to be dumped in these rivers is nothing short of ecological vandalism. But climate change, pandemics, antimicrobial resistance, and how do we feed 8 billion people and give them energy sustainably? These are daunting challenges. Thank you, sir. We must face them, though. That is not because they're just, well, we have to face them. They're existential threats to our civilization, but also they are economic opportunities. The technology and the expertise required to address them are also opportunities for economic growth. The UK has the potential to be a world leader in this. No single country can address these issues alone. To find lasting solutions, we need a united effort from governments, research institutes, universities, scientists, engineers, businesses and tech startups worldwide. We've learned over the last few years that whether dealing with pandemics or climate change, the human and economic costs are enormous when our political leaders ignore scientists and ignore experts. My upbringing and my state school education gave me the opportunity to have an enjoyable and fulfilling career, but I'm also aware that I was privileged. I always had a roof over my head, I had a stable family life, I never went to school hungry, and my mother, who is here today, is a former teacher, and she used to read to us every night. I do vividly remember the day she quite angrily said, "I'm not reading Danny, Champion of the World to you one more time." But many children today are not so fortunate. The increasing number of children who are growing up in poverty lack the opportunities that I had. And although these are complex issues, we can begin addressing them by providing free school meals to all children who are hungry to ensure that every child can reach their full potential. Because certainly, had I gone to school hungry, it's very unlikely I'd be standing here today as a veterinary surgeon, and even less likely as a Member of Parliament. I will miss treating animals on a daily basis, and some of my colleagues have said to me, it is fantastic for animal welfare that you have been elected to Parliament, because it means you'll be spending less time in the veterinary clinic. But, and I think I'm going to have a bigger impact on animal welfare than I ever could in clinical practice. So my goals here include updating the outdated Veterinary Surgeons Act from 1966 to make it fit for the 21st century. And we need to address issues such as puppy smuggling, because not only are they an animal welfare issue, they are actually a human health risk, bringing the risk of importing rabies and Brucella canis and other diseases that affect the human population. I also want to support our British farmers in upholding our high animal welfare standards and make sure that they are not compromised in future trade deals. Because it's not only vets and farmers who are proud of our high animal welfare standards, it is also the British public, and we must not compromise those. I really want to thank my team of volunteers, many of who are here today, who have worked so hard not only during the general election campaign, but also in this transition from setting up a constituency office. And they have been fantastic while we are recruiting for permanent members of staff. They've done over 800 pieces of casework supporting our local community. I also want to thank my family and my partner, Emma, and I'd like to pay tribute to my father, who is no longer with us, but our family had the heartbreaking experience of caring for him as he declined due to dementia. And I know there's many people in Winchester and Hampshire and throughout the country who are experiencing the same situation with their loved ones. It is the honour of my life to serve as Winchester's MP. I will continue to stand up and fight for our local NHS services, our local hospital services, and I want to thank everyone who put their faith in me and my team. We will not let you down.
Speech, Tristan Osborne.